Hi everyone, Zach here, and welcome to Lesson 14 in this series on developing an RTS game in Unreal Engine 5. In this video, we'll begin setting up our construction system by having a ghost or preview building spawn in. This video and this series have been brought to you by Patreon sponsors. Alright, open up your projects and let's make a start. All right, so here we are back inside of the editor. And what we're going to do is we are going to have it so when we press the B button, a ghost building will spawn at coordinates 0, 0, 0. So right there. All right, so to do this, what we need to do is we need to set up our building master and our building manager. So we will start with our building manager, which is going to be a component, and then we will move on to our building master. So we're going to go into our core folder, and we will create a new folder, which we will call buildings. All right, let's hop that open. In here, we're going to create a new blueprint, which will be of type actor component. And this will be BP building manager. All right, go ahead and open that up. And in our building manager, well, first what we're going to do is we are going to create two custom functions. So I'm just going to do a custom function of set preview. There we go, that's our first one, which will have one input, which will be called row name, and this will be of type name. Likewise, we'll have another custom event called spawn preview building, which will also have one argument known as row name and of course of type name. So the first thing we're going to do on our spawn preview building is get the transform we want to spawn at. Now, in this video, this will be an empty transform. In the next video, when we start moving the preview with the mouse, we will actually get the correct coordinates we want the building to spawn in at. So for now, what we're going to do is we are just going to create a new variable called preview transform, which will be of type transform. Sorry, I was almost to say vector there. And we're going to put this into a category called preview because we're going to have global preview, construction, etc. all in here. And for now, we're just going to set it here. Yes, this is still going to be an empty transform for the time, which is why it's going to spawn at 0, 0, 0. And next, what we want to do is we want to spawn actor from class. Now, here's the problem. We don't have our class yet. We don't have our BP building master. So we're going to leave that for a moment and go up to our spawn preview. And in our spawn preview, we're going to have a branch. And down here, we want to know, are we already previewing something? So we need a Boolean for that. And we're going to create this Boolean called B is previewing. Now this again will be Boolean type. We will set this to private. And we will also put this into our preview category. You can put it into a subfolder called bools. I normally do, but I'm skipping that for this one. And we're going to take is previewing and put it there. I'm meant to actually pin it in automatically, but because this is private, we're going to be a bit cheeky. We're going to collapse this to a function called get is previewing. This will be a pure function with the return B is previewing, and if this is true, well, what we're going to do is we are going to destroy the preview. So we actually do need a third custom event. So I'm just going to do a custom event down here called destroy preview, and we're going to just leave it for a moment. We're going to come back up to the top here, and what we're going to do is destroy that preview. So we're going to call destroy preview, and then we are going to spawn our preview building, and we're going to do this also if it's false. So what we're doing is we're saying if we're already spawned something into preview, we want to destroy the current preview and spawn something else in. If we haven't already spawned a preview in, then go ahead and spawn the preview in. We're going to pass the row name through like that. There we go. Okay, so that is fairly simple, I think. From there, we are going to set is previewing. And to do this, I'm going to just go ahead and put this in my preview folder. I am going to duplicate this. I'm going to do set is previewing. And no, I shouldn't have duplicated. It could have been faster just to do it by hand. Undo that, pin that in as a setter, plug that into there, compile. We're still going to get an error because of this. We'll take care of that before the end of the video, don't worry. And we are going to set is previewing here. to, and it's not a pure function anymore, to true. There we go. And then everything after that we do will be related to our stuff in the next video, which is moving the building along with where the mouse is. So what we need to do now is actually create the thing we want to spawn in. And to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our main folder here, or our main window in our main content browser. And in buildings, we're going to add a new blueprint class of type actor, which we'll call BP Building Master. All right, let's pop open Building Master for a moment, and we're going to spend some time in the viewport. First, I want to grab a billboard, and I want the billboard, not the billboard material, and this will be called our building route. Now, I will say that some of this actually works significantly better in C++. I will point out things we have to do in Blueprint that we don't need to do in C++. All right, so with that done, what we are going to do is we are going to start with our collision box. And we're going to do this in the reverse order of how I've done it in Unreal Engine 4 because for some reason it works better that way, which will be entry point. Then we will have another collision box. Notice I selected building route before doing that. So collision, and this collision box will be our collision box itself. This will be our main collision. And then again, we're going to select the building route. We're going to do add and do our final bit, which is our static mesh. And this static mesh will be our current building mesh. There we go. We do not need our building to tick, so we're going to turn off tick there. Okay. The next bit we need to do is we need to set up a fair number of things. So we want to set our mesh first. And if you remember our mesh, well, we have three options. We have construction, a base, and damage. And within them, they're arrays. So we need to figure out how we're going to set that. So what we're going to do is first we're going to get our building data. And so we're going to create a new function. We're going to create a new function called set building data. And in here, what we're going to do is we are going to do a check on the validity of what building wants to build. So we're going to do a branch. And how we do this check is, remember, we're using data tables. And if you remember very early on when we did our data table, I said, hey, make sure to rename the row name. I clicked here and did it with you and said, hey, set it to barracks. So we need that element. That's what that row name thing is. And we need to make sure that's a valid one. We do that in two steps. So the first thing we need is a variable called row name. And row name in this case will be, of course, type name. It will be instance editable. It will be exposed on spawn and also private. And we'll call this master. All right, go ahead and we're going to get this. And we're actually going to compile it really quickly just so I can set the default here to null. And basically, we want to check, has this been overwritten? So we're going to do, is it not equal to null? In other words, have we put something in to actually overwrite it? All right, go ahead and pin those in, move that up, line that there. All right, next we need one more variable, and this will be our building data table. This will also go into master, and this will be, of course, of type data table. So we just want our data table there. We'll compile this. We will set the default to our building data table, and then we're going to do a validated get. All right, plug that into there. And what we're going to do, if neither of these are valid, we are going to destroy the actor. And we're going to pin the non-valid into there as well. Put a reroute in just so it lines up a bit neater. There we go. If it is valid, what we are going to do is that we are then, actually we're going to move this down. I'm going to change some things up for my prep file. We're going to take care of one more not valid as well, which is why we're changing this. But if it is valid, what we're going to do is we're going to get data table. And we want to get data table down here. We are going to use our building data tables. And as for our row name, well, we have a variable that stores that information. So we're going to get row name, plug it into there. And this is why we're moving this down. In fact, actually, I'm going to unpin this for a moment, put another reroute in, because, yeah. All right, so I'm just going to move this way. If it is not valid, we will also destroy the building. If it is valid, we're going to take this out row and we're going to promote it to our building data. Our building data will go into our master category as well. There we go. And then we're going to have a return. Our return actually is going to have a output. And it will be B data valid. And in this case, this is true. We're going to duplicate that down here. And in this case, that is not true. Okay, so that's our first function within our building master done. Next, what we're going to do is we need to do our set mesh. So let's create a, well, before we do that, actually, let's put this into our master folder. Actually, we're going to call this global instead of master for this one. All right, now we need another function called set mesh. Set mesh will also go into our global. It will have one input argument of type index, or a name index of type integer. And we're going to promote this to a local variable called index ref, or index local. Sorry, I'm still coming off the survival series where it's index ref. We are going to do our set building data. If it is valid, then we will continue. If not, well, we'll do nothing. All right, so if it is valid, we are going to set our static mesh. So let's grab our current building mesh here. Let's set static mesh. All right, and from set static mesh, what we're going to do is we're going to do a select node on our mesh type. So we're going to do select, and now we need one more variable for our index or our wildcard, and that's going to be our construction status. So that's going to be our enum from the last video. So we have construction status. This will be of type E construction status that we created last time. This will be instance editable. It will be exposed on spawn. It will also be private. We will save that. And yes, we are going to have an error because we haven't done anything there. We're going to plug that into there. There we go. And now for our preview, all of these really, what we're going to do is we're going to get our building data. We are going to get from this and we're going to break it. And from our break, let's expand this out. We are going to get our construction meshes we want to get. Just going to duplicate my get down here, plug the arrays into the destruct and damage, or base and damage. There we go. Hide unconnected pins, and we're good to move forward. So to move forward, what we're going to do is we're just going to move these this way for a moment. We're going to get our index local, and we're going to plug that into each of these gets. There we go. All right, so we have our construction. Our construction goes into our under construction one there. We have our base. Our base goes into our preview and into our built. And our damaged goes into, well, the damaged one. There we go. Fairly simple stuff, and that takes us through setting this bit up. Well, now what we need to do is set up our collisions. And we have sort of 3 steps for that. First, we have to set up our collision area, our entrance, and then get our overall extent. So let's set up with our collision area. What we're going to do is we're going to get our current building mesh. We are going to get from this our local bounds. And there we are. So we have the information right there for what we need. Except for what we need to do now is break both of these structures so we can see all the aspects of it. We care about the min x, min y, and max z. And we're going to take from the min y an absolute value, which we are going to subtract from it a value of 15. So we're going to do minus 15. And then we're going to take this and make a vector. We are then going to take these 2 nodes here. We are going to duplicate them and plug that into the min y. And plug that into the y there. There we go. Okay, and our z, what we're going to do for this one is a bit different. We're going to divide it by 2 and pass that information on here. Okay, so this is getting what our collision box size should be. And so we're going to take our collision box. We are going to set box extent, and we are going to plug that into there. There we go. Plug that into there, move that way. And don't worry about lining those up because we're going to actually collapse this bit down into a function in a moment. We're going to take from this collision box again, and we are going to set relative location. So we want to do set relative location. And from the set relative location, we do not want to sweep or teleport. We really do not want to sweep. We want to have this go on regardless. And we're going to take from this division again. And we are going to plug that into our new location. So to do that, we split our new location and we plug directly into the Z because we're just going to be moving along the Z axis for that bit. All right, go ahead and clean this up a bit so it lines up a bit nicer and neater. There we go. Select all of the nodes after our set mesh, collapse to function, and this will be set collision area. This will also be global. All right. So global means regardless of the building state, will we be doing something? And in this case, yes, we'll be doing this for construction, damage, and preview. Okay. Oh, and base. Plug the return in. Go ahead and compile. Go back to your set mesh. And now what we need to do is do the same thing for our entrance. So we are going to get our current building mesh again. And we are going to do get local bounds. Now, if you're not using my meshes, which, hey, I kind of advise that because I'm not a good artist, I'm a code monkey, is that you're going to need to add in one little step. If you are not using my meshes, you need to check if one of the steps I'm adding in is something you need, and I'll tell you exactly what step that is, and we'll do that one second. So first we're going to take care of is our Y here. And we want to do an absolute, just like before. We want to do a subtraction, and we're going to subtract from this one a value of 20. And we're going to make vector. Okay, except for this one now goes into our Y, and we leave our X and Z at 0. All right, now we're going to do this for our X. And this is one where you might deviate if you're using your own meshes. So if I follow along with this, we're going to do absolute. You need this regardless. We are going to do add. You need this regardless, and this will be 150. Okay, this next step, after I line these up, is the step that you may not need to use depending on your meshes and how you've imported them. We're going to do multiply. And we're going to multiply this by -1. If your meshes are different than mine, and your entrance points are showing up at the back of the mesh, and you have not done this step, then do this step. If they are showing up at the back of your mesh and you have done this step, then delete this. So use if entrance is in back. So if the entrance is showing up in the wrong location, the back of the mesh, you want this. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to get our entry point, and we are going to set box extent. For our set box extent, we're going to use this make vector. Go ahead and plug that in. Again, don't worry about lining it up too much. We'll fix this up when we collapse it down to a function. All right. From there, we are going to set relative location. And we'll plug that into that execute there. Go ahead and put another reroute in if you want to make it line up a little bit nicer and neater. And then we're going to split the structure. Again, we do not want to sweep or teleport. And we're going to take from here and plug into our Z. Sorry, into our X, not our Z, our X. All right, I guess we didn't need to break that second one. I'm just so used to doing it. So we're going to recombine the structure pins. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and collapse this down to a function called set entrance. And that will also be in our global. All right, pop that open, and let's just clean this up a tiny bit, even though we really don't need to because we're not coming back in here. It just makes life easier for debugging in the future. All right. Let's go back to our event graph for just a moment. And here's where things get a bit, well, fun. First off, let's delete our tick and our overlap. We're not using our tick. We're going to repeat some of our checks on our event begin play. So first, we're going to do our name check. And all we're doing here is a branch. We want to ensure that the row name is not the default name. So we're going to do not equal. And then our default name was null. So if we're not equal to null, then we'll continue. If we are equal to null, so in other words, this statement is false, we will destroy the actor. All right, so all we're doing is adding in a bunch of checks. Next, we're going to have a sequence. We can hold on the S and click and get a sequence node, the B and click and get a branch. All right, we're going to plug that into there. And what we're going to do here is, based on our construction status, we're going to do different things. We're going to get our construction status, which, by the way, should be in a category called status. We're going to have a few variables in there. And we're going to get it, and we're going to switch on status. And we're going to plug that into the then one. We are going to duplicate this and plug this into the then one as well. Sorry, the then 0 and the then 1. Now, this then 1, why are we doing the same thing? This is related to that thing I said earlier about in blueprints, this does not work as well as it does in C++. But we'll talk about that in just a moment. We're going to worry about the preview part first. And all we're going to do is create something called run set preview mesh. And I'm going to have columns of functions here. So we'll have global on one side, we'll have construction on preview on another, then construction, etc., etc. So I'm going to start towards the middle just because I know that I'm going to have other ones I want. We're going to do a custom event called run set preview mesh, and we'll just leave that for now. Under construction, we're going to do the, or sorry, not construction, under preview, we're going to do the run set preview mesh. So run set preview mesh, and we're done up here. We'll come back to the other ones later on in this section, of course, but now let's talk about this one here. And this is due to an issue in BP that does not exist in C++. On preview, the mesh will not move on the Z-axis correctly. And to fix that, I had to add in these nodes. So if you're doing this in C++, you're using this as a blueprint to develop from, pun intended, then skip this sequence, of course, and this entire thing off of here. So what we're going to do is first we're going to get our entry point, and we are going to do attach component to component. There we go. And this again will be only on preview. We're not going to do anything for under construction, built, damaged, because it only matters when we're moving it. All right, so that is our target. Our parent is our current building mesh. There we go. And we'll leave everything keep relative. We will not wield or weld simulated bodies. Let's duplicate this minus the entry point over here. Not sure why it only duplicated one of those, but okay. And for this one, our target will be our collision box instead. So go ahead and pin that into there. And that is us done for that bit. Again, that is purely there for our use in Blueprint. You do not need it in C++. Okay, now let's do our set preview mesh. Now, before we do that, we need to have one of our global events ready. Now, this could be a function, but I have for some reason decided we're going to do it as an event. And this will be our set construction status. So set construction status or status. There we go. Get the set construction status, plug that into there, and plug that into our event there. Okay, now with that done, we can return back to our set preview mesh. Actually, before we continue, we're gonna go back to something I said earlier. I said we have something to do, 3 things to do here. We did 2 of them. Sorry about that. The next thing we need to do on our set mesh is set our extent. This will be more important for the next video, but we'll do that now. We're gonna create a variable called extent, and this will be of type vector. It will be private, and we will put this into our construction category, which we don't have yet. And we're going to set it here. And what we're going to do to set it is we are going to get the scaled box extents of our collision and our entry point. So get scaled box extent. We'll duplicate that node down here. We'll do the same for our entry point. All right, and then what we do is we add these together. All right, pin that into there. And now we can do a return node here. And with that done, we can return back to our event graph. All we're going to do on our run set preview mesh is do our, we're gonna move these both down actually, I should move them together as one. All right, what we're gonna do here is our set construction status, and we'll leave that at preview. And then we are going to do set mesh. We're gonna take these 2 functions themselves and collapse them down to another function called set preview mesh, which will go into our, well, we don't have a previews folder yet, so we will create a preview building category. There we go. Actually, we're going to rename this category as just preview, because we're going to use preview on the bottom and preview on the top so it mirrors each other. All right, now that we've done that, what we're going to do is we are going to set our materials. Now, this is a bit of a tricky one. So first thing we need to do is create a new variable. This variable will be called preview material. It will be of type material instance. And you want this one down here. All right, we're going to compile, and this will go into a category called master, by the way. And for this, we're going to use our M building instance or preview instance. There we go. We want to get this. You want to convert it to a validated get. We want to make sure it actually exists. And then we are going to do a for loop. And for this for loop, we'll start at index 0. And then we're going to get our current building mesh. From here, we're going to get num materials. And we are going to go to the last index. Now, you might need to do a -1 to make this work correctly, but I don't mind that we might go beyond the scope a little bit. And then we're going to do from this current mesh, let's put a reroute in. is we are going to set material, and we're going to set it at element from our index here. This way, if we have more than one material, we can now have the ghost material on all of it. We're going to take this preview material and plug into material there. There we go. Let's just line these up a bit. And then next, what we'll do, from our current building mesh, we will do create dynamic material instance. That will go into there. We'll put another reroute in just so this lines up a bit easier to read. And again, our material will go into our source material there. And again, I'm just going to line these up so they're a bit easier to read. We'll pass in our index again. And then finally, we're going to come off of here and we're going to do add unique. And we're going to create a new array here of material list. And this material list will go into our master. There we go. Okay, now we're going to take all of these nodes from the validated get all the way to our add unique and collapse this down to a function called set preview material. Okay, let's put this into a category called preview. All right, let's pop back over to our building manager, and in here we're going to do our BP building master. There we go, and we want our spawn transform to be our transform from that. For our row name, we're going to plug row name in from our input argument there, and then for our construction, we're going to leave it under preview. We want to make sure that this actually spawns. We're going to check is valid, and we're going to go back after I put this execute pan in and change our collision handling. Well, we should always have it spawn. So always spawn. All right, from there, if this is valid, what we're going to do is we're going to promote this to a variable called building ref, which will go into a folder called references. There we go. And then we'll pull off of this pin and we'll do set construction status and we'll have it at preview. Now I realize we're doing this elsewhere, but this is just to be on the safe side. All right, go ahead and compile that. All right, next what we're gonna do is we're gonna head over to our player folder, open up our player controller, and in our player controller, what we're going to do is we're gonna add our BP building manager, which we will call our building manager as a component, and we're going to find some spot above the begin play. We're going to right click and type in B, and I'm going to type in the word key, and we're going to scroll up to find our B keyboard input. So there's DCB. There we go. So when we press B, we're going to take our building manager and we're going to set preview, and what we're going to set our preview to is to our barracks. All right, now before we test this, we're going to test it in one other way really quickly. I'm just going to go over here on this part of the map. I'm going to grab our buildings, our building master, and under row name, I'm going to type in barracks, and nothing happens because I skipped one very important step. Go back to your building master, and into your building master, go to your construction script. In your construction script, grab your set mesh and plug it into there. Leave everything as is, hit compile, go back here, and there we have the building. Now, what's interesting, and this might actually be something to consider, is notice it's changing when we change it to built. Damage has nothing in there, so we have nothing. And so I think what's happened right now is there is a bit of an error, and we're going to actually see that error in a second just to confirm. Okay, sorry if there's a bit of a jump there. I had a weird error where for some reason the building I placed earlier respawned. It wouldn't let me delete it. So the error we were seeing earlier wasn't an error. Everything is set up what we need to do. So now we can spawn a building in, but we cannot spawn it under our mouse and have it follow our mouse. So in the next couple of videos, what we'll take care of is actually rotating and moving our preview. So in the next video itself, we'll do moving the preview. In the video after that, we'll do rotating. And then we'll get into our construction events and then finally into our UMG widget elements for this. That takes us through what we need to do for today's video. If you've enjoyed setting up the ability to add in a preview mesh, make sure to hit that like button down below. And if you want to be here when we continue to work on this, so when we actually have our building following our mouse, make sure to hit the subscribe and notify icon. And if you want to take your support a bit further, consider becoming a Patreon sponsor. Patreon sponsors at upper tiers get instant access to all ongoing and completed projects on YouTube, and at other tiers get access once projects are completed. In addition, Patreons get early access to these videos, sometimes months in advance. All right, all of that said, I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.